next question.
Yes. My parents came to Canada in 1938 from Ukraine. At that time, Stalin was in charge there, and he was responsible for millions of deaths. Here in Winnipeg, after the war, my neighbors that ran the corner grocery store, they came from the same village as my father, with concentration numbers on their arm. And myself, I was raised Catholic. I'm Catholic. So this subject is something that, it's not just history, it's personal. One thing that hasn't been touched on too often, whether it's in the movie Schindler's List or other places, is why did people like Hitler treat certain groups of people as non-human? And over the years, people have addressed that, and from what I remember, the reason he did this is because he grabbed hold on to the teachings of people like Darwin, with survival of the fittest, and books that in their title includes words like the preservation of favored races. So these people, Hitler, Stalin, they weren't just bad people, they had a belief system. They believed that, as a Christian, my Bible says that God made people in the image of God. We're all created in the image of God. People like Hitler and Stalin, they read books that people evolve, and some are more human than others. And it's more of a, well, I could put it as a question, is sometimes in these presentations or movies, why isn't the motivation of these mass murderers addressed?
Well, I don't want you to repeat your question. Thank you very much. You know, the idea of the pure Aryan race was something that Hitler latched onto, and it became acceptable. You know, people were so praised, and they were the master race, and all these things that they were, at the very beginning, they were knocking over one country after another, and everything was just wonderful. So, you know, but as far as how did people follow something like that is beyond me. My credentials are not quite up there for that.
I have two short questions. One, I'd like to know what you did after you arrived in Los Angeles. But before that, could you tell me, Mr. Leyson, how the Jewish people around the world honored Mr. Schindler for his life-saving work?
Well, you know, after the war, Schindler was shunned by the Germans, so he wasn't doing very well in business. He was not able to start a business in Germany because they wouldn't do business with him. He went to Argentina, and then that was not, he was not very successful after the war. And so during that period of time, he was supported by those people who survived on his list. And he traveled to visit people on his list a lot. He used to go to Israel, where most of the people that survived on Schindler's List lived, and he used to call that visiting his children. He also came to Los Angeles. In 1965, he came to LA, and he came to visit those of us who were on his list. And you know, when in 1965, when he came to Los Angeles, we all went to the airport to greet him, and because 20 years later, after he saw me, last time he saw me, I was 15. Now I was a grown man, and I grew, and I was married, and so I was going to introduce myself. But when I started to, he interrupted me, and he said, "I know who you are. You're a little Leyson." 20 years later, so you're still pretty good. Yes.
I've read a book by Anna Porter, and of course did Mr. Kastner, who had the Kastner's train. Were he and Schindler acquaintances?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because he was mostly involved with getting the Hungarian people.
Right.
And he used a different system. He just went and gathered up all the money he could. Instead of providing employment, he just bribed and bought as many as he could.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wallenberg is one of the people who, gave out a lot of false documents to Jews, Hungarian Jews, and saved a lot of Jews during that period. He's another rescuer.
We have a number of questions from the back.
Yes.
When you were 11 and you told the story when your friends escaped and when you tried to stay, do you know if they survived? The ones that hid in the attic?
Did you understand? None of my friends survived who went to hide. Sorry about that. Yeah, they did not survive. I did a lucky thing, and I went to, try to get out and did get out. But those who went into hiding did not survive the war.
My question is a bit of an extension. It wasn't the era of technology like we have now, cell phones. And how did you find out when that first transportation train went that they were deported to a gas chamber? Or how did you find out that your whole family was killed by that first troop? Was it once the war was over?
We didn't know anything about what had happened in Eastern Europe until the war was over, and we came back to Poland and discovered that everyone had been murdered.
And how about the transportation trains? Like, how did you know
about the transports to the death camps and so on? At first, when the first transport went out, no one could have believed that they were doing this. But the word came back little by little. Some people who were outside the ghetto, who had contact with those inside the ghetto, was telling about how these trains are going into these places with people in it, and then they come out empty, and then another train goes in, and it comes out empty, and something very strange was happening. And so little by little, we began to accept the idea that it's true that they were doing that.